Ideal World TV, which has been one of the two major UK shopping channels, has gone into administration with seemingly little hope of salvaging the brand. This has all happened within these past few days, this week entirely, with everything really beginning kind of out of the blue in terms of the public on the 3rd of July. On that date, Ideal World suspended broadcasting on Freeview, Virgin Media and Sky. It also suspended its website, and apart from a skeleton staff, sent the rest of its staff home to both await further information and also to await a meeting at their base in Peterborough on the 6th of July. The staff, of course, did attend that meeting on the 6th, only to discover that the further information is that now Ideal World TV is not only in administration, but almost 250 staff members, and I think it's pretty much the whole of its staff, have been made redundant. So the outlook really doesn't look good currently for Ideal World, which first took to the broadcast airwaves on the 17th of April 2000. So just over 23 years ago. One of those who was involved in the very early days of Ideal World is a television presenter called Debbie Flint. She's now back working at QVC, has been for several years. She did a Facebook Live and she mentioned this. I didn't realise it existed, and I'll try and put a link in the description below. But she mentioned a documentary that's on YouTube. If you search telesales, T-E-L-L-Y, sales, Ideal World, there's approximately 48-minute documentary charting what is, to be honestly, the chaotic launch of Ideal World. It's the full documentary. I'll try and link it below. It's certainly the 48-minute ones. I think there's 2 versions or something of it, but certainly the whole documentary is on YouTube, and it shows the calamity and chaos that was the lead up to the launch of Ideal World, again on the 17th of April 2000. It was Debbie along with 2 other male presenters who were the main presenters in those early days of Ideal World. And you get to see all the behind the scenes stuff, and eventually, of course, the highlights of the opening launch night. There is a 26-minute video called The Opening of Ideal World. It's also on YouTube. I don't know whether any of the rest of the first night's 3-hour broadcast is available on YouTube, but certainly those are worth checking out, especially that documentary. Shows you just how chaotic and kind of unprepared Ideal World seemed to be for launching on air. And talking of chaotic, I think it has a little bit over the last 23 years of a little bit of a chaotic ownership. Looking at its Wikipedia, and I'm looking on my phone obviously to save printing stuff out, but it seems to have had several different owners over those 23 years. The most recent was when it was sold in February of 2022 by asset management firm Aurelius Equity Opportunities to an entrepreneur called Hamish Morjaria. It is now technically under the ownership of the administrators, because if you now look at Ideal World's website, it comes up with a banner saying, "Please note that Michael Lennon and James Saunders of Kroll Advisory Limited were appointed joint administrators of Ideal World Limited on 5th July 2023. So it is officially in administration, and again, I'll get to the possibility of being sold and stuff like that, and who might be interested shortly. But certainly, I think it seems, even though this has come out of the blue, I think maybe over the last year or so, the financial difficulties have hit Ideal World. Because if you look at the Wikipedia, and obviously I heard about this at the time, but that sale by the asset management firm Aurelius Equity Opportunities in February of last year, plus of course also something I really do want to mention, I want to tell a little bit of the backstory of. In January of last year, Ideal World sold their Create and Craft arm of the business, which are the Create and Craft channels, which are there 2 or 3 of them, which sells arts and crafts supplies. That story last year tickled me a fair bit, to be honest. Maybe it's not, I don't know whether anybody lost their jobs or anything in that, but kind of the irony of that tickled me. I found it a little bit funny. Maybe maybe shouldn't have, but the why I found the sale of Create and Craft to the firm Hochanda Global Limited tickled me was, to be honest, because of the way that Hochanda became a success. I don't know whether it's a division of another country's television. It seems it's all set up within the UK, looking at it a little bit before I recorded this video. But part of the success of Hochanda, and it used to be its own separate channel, but now I think they're doing everything on television under the Create and Craft name. And I believe Create and Craft was created in around about 2003, 2004. So they're now kind of putting everything together under that Create and Craft name. So the Hochanda name, certainly on television, has disappeared, so it's now all under Create and Craft. But one of the reasons Hochanda, the company, became successful was because of some of the ex-Create and Craft presenters and experts. Why did some of them leave? Well, the story behind that is quite funny a little bit as well. I thought it was maybe around about 2020, 2021, but I think it's actually maybe even going, because looking what I've researched, I think Hochanda was actually set up in 2015, which is far earlier than I thought it was. But certainly the reason, and maybe it happened around 2015, and maybe it happened far earlier than I realised, but certainly what did happen, and let's just say it happened around about 2015, maybe around that time period, but part of the reason why Hochanda became successful and was able to get into the position to buy Create and Craft was because of it built a large part of its success on ex-Create and Craft TV presenters and experts who had left because, and I don't know whether this became from the Create and Craft management or whether it came from the Ideal World management, but what certainly the Create and Craft management started to insist upon was that all of their television presenters and even any of their guest experts would only do and only have income from whatever it is they did on Create and Craft. So none of their presenters or any of their guest experts, even if they did a couple hours a month, maybe once or twice a month, a couple hours or so, what Create and Craft management wanted them all to do was to shut down any businesses that they ran, sell any interest in any other arts and crafts company that they had, and basically only survive on the stuff that they were doing for create and craft. And it's still a little bit muddy. Take the example of one expert that walked away, and I can't remember her name, maybe Angela, call her Angela. Say, Angela guests on create and craft, say twice a month for a couple of hours. They were trying to demand that Angela sign an employment contract, and none of this would have stood up in court. Even me with no legal qualifications or legal training recognises this, and I don't think it was ever got to the stage where it was challenged. But if Angela was to sign that contract, they would insist that she close her own personal business of over 20 years, and her only income from with anything to do with arts and crafts would be the money that they pay her for those 2 slots a month on their channel. Absolutely ridiculous. That was the way that it happened. I don't think a lot of the presenters and experts came out and specifically told their story. I don't think any of them have, perhaps fearing legal backlash, or maybe it was something they agreed upon to get out of there and be able to become part of the Hochanda group. But certainly that's what happened. Again, maybe as far as back as 2015. I thought it was a bit later than that. I thought it was maybe within the recent last 3 or 4 years. Maybe it was as far back as 2015. But that's basically what happened. And so quite a few of the presenters and some of the experts walked away, and some joined Hochanda. And again, obviously, like we're seeing even on YouTube with, say, photography stuff or some changes in presenting, some people will follow the presenters and experts that they obviously trust and believe in to different channels. So if they leave one channel, I don't want to really give examples, but if they leave one channel and maybe go to another YouTube channel, some people will also change their viewing from that old channel to the new channel that those people have joined, and just simply watch that new channel where the presenters now are. And I believe that was part of the reason why Hochanda Global Limited was able to be successful enough to the point where it came to maybe, and probably most likely, the financial situation of Ideal World was beginning to tell that they had to sell off their create and craft arm, that Hochanda were in the position to buy create and craft from Ideal World. So that situation tickled me a little bit, because we were very, very insistent on people signing those contracts, and if you couldn't sign the contracts, you can't work here. And again, the presenters and stuff have never really came out publicly and said stuff. Maybe legal stuff prevents them to do that, but certainly that was the story that was out and about in the public. Maybe it was back as far as 2015, which is far longer than I thought it would have been, but certainly that was the story that was going around, and it was pretty much confirmed by different sources. But anyway, I think that certainly looks like Ideal World, I think, had been in a little bit of financial trouble for longer, obviously, and in these past few weeks. I think it started to tell maybe in late 2021, beginning of 2022, obviously with the sale of the company and the sale of the Create and Craft and a couple of bits. I think it mentions that they also sold their Lovecraft stock and a couple of other interests that they had. So obviously by late 2021, early 2022, seems the financial situation was beginning to fall on Ideal World. Part of the statement that the staff were supposedly told on the 3rd of July, when they were told to go, a lot of them were told to go home, and obviously that same day, as I said earlier at the start, they suspended their website and broadcasting. Staff were reportedly told that there are several interested parties in acquiring the business and the company, and that the company was hoping to share further information. Obviously, again, they went back for that meeting on the 6th, only to be told actually the further information is we're now in administration and you're all made redundant. Something that that statement says that I want to kind of get into in this end part of the video is that it also states that over the weekend the actions of a few key trading partners has added to a recent difficult trading period, and therefore we have taken the decision to suspend all trading with immediate effect. And that's a statement reportedly sent to its employees. Again, all on Wikipedia. I, for one, I'm starting to think, as I've been sitting here and trying to do this video, I'm beginning to think that, especially as later on in Wikipedia it says that Ideal World have said that they owe hundreds of thousands of pounds to suppliers, I'm beginning to suspect that perhaps one or more of its suppliers over these past couple of weeks have maybe begun to at least explore whatever legal avenues are open to them in terms of recovering any monies that are owed. I think it's just common sense that any business that supplies products and or services, if you're owed a lot of money by what is again a major name, you know, it's really been for the last 23 years, and I know there's many other channels, and there's also some that have come and gone, like Price Drop, Bid Up TV. I know there's several of those kind of channels that have come and gone, but two of the main ones over the years have been QVC UK and Ideal World. So they're a pretty big name, but there comes a point for any supplier that it will reach a point where you will say, okay, I'm owed a certain amount of money, I'm going to have to start looking at ways to recover the money, and I'm going to have to go forward with it. Whether it is going to the courts, and there is no suggestion that any supplier has actually gone and done any particular actions like courts or anything, but whether you start exploring in courts or whether you even just send demand letters, you know, like people get for bills, you know, we're going to write to you 3 times about the money that you owe us, we would like some sort of payment by this date, and you know, if so, we could maybe continue doing business, or you know, whatever the situation demands. Maybe one of the or more of their suppliers have done that. Even if it's not going through the courts, maybe it's sending letters to Ideal World saying basically, we're shutting you off from supplies until you pay us at least X amount of this money. And so maybe something like that has happened, which has forced Ideal World to say, well, we don't have money to pay our suppliers, so maybe its hand has been eventually forced into taking the steps to go into administration. I don't know about debt recovery or debt management or anything like that at all. I have no training in that either, but I think looking at that statement where it states you know, that over the weekend the actions of a few trading key trading partners have added to recent difficult trading period, that sounds to me, reading between the lines, that sounds like to me that one or more suppliers have decided they need to start trying to see whether they can get their money or not, and see what legal actions is available to them. So that sounds like what has been happening, that maybe the suppliers have started to really seriously go after their money, which obviously again leaves Ideal World in a bad position. In terms of the possibility of them being bought, a couple of people suggested that maybe Mike Ashley, owner of Sports Direct, who I think may own maybe a little bit of part or something of Sports Direct, of Ideal World or one of some similar company, somebody did suggest him. He's just actually bought a shopping centre here in Dundee. He's got a lot of fingers in different pies. To be honest, anybody who's going to come in and potentially salvage and rescue Ideal World, there's going to be a lot to unravel if there's any legal stuff. Plus, again, Ideal World saying they owe suppliers hundreds of thousands of pounds. You're going to have majorly deep pockets to come in, buy the brand, buy the company and all its intellectual properties and all that stuff, plus also come to some sort of deal with any creditors if they're willing to do that, because they can always say no. Plus also, you know, the cost of living crisis. There's also, you know, the difficult trading markets that are going on, and again, I'm not an expert in this, but you know, a lot of shops even here in Dundee have been closing and shutting up shop, and a lot of even national brands and banks and different stores are cutting back on the amount of physical locations that they are having. There's so much goes into it that it may come to a point where any interested parties may basically say, well, we're going to have to spend a lot of money even just buying the company, settling debts, and then looking at the financial figures. It hasn't been doing well, so is it basically even worth it investing all of this money into trying to rescue Ideal World, where we might end up just losing even more money and shuttering it completely within about 18 or so months. So it is going to be a huge ask, I think, in the current climate, to really, for anybody to come in, and they're going to have a lot of knowledge and capabilities as well with running such an operation. I'm not entirely sure that somebody is going to come along and really decide to invest, especially in its current form. If it is rescued, I think we'll see a major change in what Ideal World is right now, compared to what it might be. I don't know, again, suggesting that maybe they may make it Sports Direct TV or something like that, which I don't think might particularly work even. So I kind of fear for the future of Ideal World. Not that I'm a huge fan of it, but just the situation, I kind of fear that any interested parties may look at the financial realities of it and decide in the end it's not really worth it. I will just very quickly say before I wrap up this video, I do feel so sorry for all of those employees involved in this. You know, the ground level staff, those who deal with the orders, the telephone orders, the online orders, those in the warehouse, those amongst the studio, all the staff, obviously are very, in quite quick succession, lost their jobs. You know, within a few days, you go from probably looking at the road to, right, what am I working the next few weeks, to, oh, well, actually, I don't have a job anymore. And I know what that's kind of like, so I've been through it once myself. So it's a very difficult situation. I had more notice than they did, at least, but I do feel very, very sorry for them. Even the presenters, you know, I think there's at least 2 married couples that were presenting on Ideal World. Hopefully maybe some of them will be picked up by another channel. Hopefully, you know, the rest of the staff can get work elsewhere. I believe there's a couple like Hochanda is also based in Peterborough, and then again I don't know what their needs are in terms of staff. So and I don't know what Peterborough is like for employment or any kind of thing. So, you know, I'm assuming that a lot of the staff there will be fairly local to Peterborough, in terms of where they live. Obviously, in getting to works, I don't know what the job environment there. It's Dundee, it's not particularly brilliant at the moment either. So I do feel very sorry for the staff who lost their jobs. It's a shame to see all of that happening. Some people say it's a sign of the times, but it is very difficult to see, you know, to see all those jobs go in just at once. It's a great shame. Do Do I see personally Ideal World surviving? Again, sadly not. I think it's going to take too much deep pockets and too much knowledgeability and too much time to try and turn things around. I don't think now is, and I'm no great financial expert at all, but I don't really see it getting picked up by anyone. Sadly, maybe Ideal World has gone out of business, and maybe eventually it'll be wound up. I'm sure the administrators will continue looking to see whether they can sell the business or parts of the business on as time moves on. It's they've only just been appointed a couple of days ago, and obviously the job of administrators is to try and look for the best deal, but as we all know, sadly, sometimes administrators are left with no choice but to liquidate the business.